Hey, everybody, welcome to Love and Reload, the voice of the relocation industry. I am your host, Ben Cross, and I am so blessed, honored, thankful, grateful to be here with Rob Fletcher, the co-founder of Heart Relocation. Rob, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Ben. Thanks for having me on the show.
I'm so excited to have you here. We've met fairly recently, but I've been really kind of taken with your approach and your outlook and your perspective, and your company's been doing some really amazing things. So I'm really excited to kind of dig into some of that stuff and kind of spread the word there a little bit.
Looking forward to sharing.
Hey, if you're watching right now, go ahead and hit that like button. Please throw in a comment. Let me hear a little shout out. Let me know you're out there. Let me know who you are, where you are, what you're up to. Give your company a little shout out. That'd be awesome. Also, any questions you have for Rob about the Heart Relocation journey, about his specific story. We're going to cover wellness. We're going to cover entrepreneurship. We're going to cover relocation. Maybe try to solve the relocation world's problems here on this show. I don't know. We'll see where it goes, right? But yeah, let us know here. We got Tim Quirk checking in. What's up, Tim? Rob and Ben from all 4 seasons in one day, Western New York. Excited for the show. Cool, Tim. Thanks for checking in, buddy. Appreciate it out there. We got Janet. I'm looking forward to hearing from Rob today. Thank you, Janet. Stacy Huff. Hi, Rob and Ben. Starting the week off with a great show. Got Val checking in from Deluxe Suites in Houston. What up, H-Town? Great lineup this week, Ben. I'm assuming you're in Houston there, Val. Let me know. Cindy Salter in the house. Salter in the house. Cindy's awesome from Dallas. That's great. And Rob, where are you in the world right now?
So, you broke up a moment. Did you say something?
Okay. Yeah, where in the world are you, Rob?
Oh, yeah, I'm in sunny London. Well, it is sunny somewhere in the world, but it ain't in London.
What's the weather like there in London right now? Just paint us a picture.
Cold and miserable. Cold
and miserable. Well, I'll tell you who's not cold and miserable. Natasha from Hawaii.
Yeah, that's a nice place to go.
Man, Natasha, what's the weather like in Hawaii? I heard it's like 80 degrees year-round. Oh, it's just beautiful. My cousin just got back from there. You ever been to Hawaii, Rob?
I have never been to Hawaii. It's got it on my bucket list.
Well, actually, today, I think you're going to talk a little bit about travel destinations, right, Rob?
Yeah,
today?
Absolutely, yeah.
Give us maybe a top 5 favorite travel destinations. It's going to be our top 5 for the day. Let's see here. Georgia, I love the name Heart Relocation. How did you come up with that name? That's a great question. Let's just lead into it.
Okay, so it's a really good story, I have to say. When we were thinking, my co-founder Anna and myself were thinking about starting a relocation company. We were thinking about what we wanted to achieve, and we were actually on vacation, and Anna and I were talking, made the decision to start our company. We're trying to be really smart, coming up with names by taking letters and creating acronyms and doing all these kinds of things. And my then 12-year-old daughter kind of leaned over and said, "Why don't you just call yourself Heart Relocation?" And we all just went, somebody must have thought of that already. So we busily checked on, whether the name was available or if somebody had taken it already. Nobody had taken it anywhere in the world. So we thought, okay, we'll have that. Thank you. And it fits. It fits with everything that we want to do as an organization, our thought processes, our methodology, everything. So it just feels like a natural.
Do you think, it's so funny you're talking about this, right? Because I'm also kind of going through this process, right? We're naming a company, coming up with a logo, look and feel, branding, brand promises, things like that, which I'm sure you and Anna went through, And, what was it about the heart idea that really resonated and said, this is who we want to be? Because logos and names are kind of aspirational, right? I mean, the company isn't anything until you make it something. So why did that become your aspiration?
Because I think, the very, I mean, if I kind of go back one step beyond that, Anna and I were kind of thinking about what's our next step in life? Who do we want to work for? Which company? And, we lived and breathed relocation, yeah, for me, I stopped counting at 30 years because it was beginning to make me feel old. We don't really know anything else, and we were thinking about, so which company could we go work for? So we thought we'd make a list. We'd make a list of
Well,
the
now
companies we
hold on,
want to
Rob.
work for,
Were
and
you
the list of the
between?
companies.
Were you between career, between jobs at this point, or what made you do this soul searching process anyway?
Yeah, it was, you know, when you work for an organization and you go and secure business from clients, and you make certain commitments to them and certain promises to them about how you want to look after them, how you want to deliver service, and the structure of the organization that you're in doesn't create the environment to enable you or your colleagues or the teams to be able to deliver that, it sometimes feels disingenuous. And what we felt more than anything else is that we wanted to create a company that did what it said it was going to do. It's not, what we do is not rocket science, right? I mean, it's pretty straightforward stuff, but we seem to kind of miss constantly. And I'll give you an example, only based on kind of new scenario. We did our first review with our first client. We walked into that meeting, and I guess people who hear this story may feel there's some resonance, but when you go for a review meeting, typically you think, how badly am I going to get beaten up, and is it going to be terminal?
When a client says, "I'd like to have you in for a review," you immediately clinch up. You start thinking, "What did I do? What did I do?" You go to the staff. You're like, "What did we do? What did we do? Does anybody know why they want to meet with us?"
Exactly. So we went for the review meeting, the first review meeting with our first client, and we walked in and they said, "We just wanted to tell you that we are blown away with what you've done. This has been the best experience. We've been doing this a long time. This has been amazing. And what we'd like to do is take you out to lunch." And they took us out of their office to a really nice restaurant, bought a bottle of champagne to celebrate. And the most important part is when the check arrived, which the client normally hands to the supplier. They said, "No,
normally the client's like, "Oh, I need to go wash up. Let me. I'll talk to you."
But they took the check and paid it and said, "That's just to say thank you from us." And I'm thinking, if that's what review meetings feel like with heart, I'm on board.
So you came back to the office and said, "Okay, guys, we need to schedule more client reviews."
Absolutely, we want one a week at least.
We need more voice of the customer in our life. Well, that's fascinating. That's really interesting. We got some really cool people here checking in here. Keep those comments coming. Let me know what questions you have for Rob. I'm fascinated by this whole process. I think we're going to stay on this just for a moment because it seems like you've touched on something that I think we can all kind of learn from. So I want to stay here just for a minute. Henri says, "Hi, everyone." What's up, Henri? Alan, hi, everyone. Hope you all had a great weekend. Checking from Germany. Let's see here. Jason, greetings from Express Corporate Housing. Henri, Europeans in the house. So Henri, I keep telling my wife, Henri, I keep telling my wife we have friends in Bordeaux. So Henri, one day you'll have to invite me out. She doesn't believe me, so written correspondence would be helpful. Len Greenberg, hi, Rob and Ben. What's up, Len? And Lynn, shout out to Len Greenberg at Pivot, because I think Lynn's the one that actually formally introduced us for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Isn't Lynn? How did you meet Lynn? Just real quick.
So we were, it's kind of not actually sure how we kind of ended up being connected, but I think we were looking at what Pivot were doing and lining that up with some of the ambitions that we had as an organization, and we started a conversation, and we realized that there was something in Pivot and what Lynn was doing that was pretty complementary to the space that we were trying to occupy. So it seemed sensible for us to kind of get together. And so we're on that journey together right now, and we want to make sure that Pivot and that ability for expats to connect with other expats when they get where they're going beyond just the closed environment of Heart Relocation is really important for us, to make sure that, again, it's going back to that whole wellness and well-being aspect of what we do. So we think it's a really exciting relationship, and I think Pivot's a great endeavor in that space too.
It does seem like a philosophical fit for you both, where your Heart Relocation and kind of looking at more of the personal angle of the service delivery. Pivot kind of cares for the assignee in a way that hasn't really been cared for before. So it does seem to make a lot of sense. So Lynn, thank you for connecting us. Miriam, hi both. Go Rob, go. So Miriam's been on the show a little bit. She's a little bit of a nut, which I love because I'm kind of crazy myself.
Mm-hmm.
What's it like working with this dynamo named Miriam Van Kempen?
It's it's interesting. I mean, we're all a little bit nuts, Ben. To be honest with you, I mean,
The best people are.
We kind of gather like-minded folks around us. Now, what I love about Miriam is her enthusiasm for life and just undaunted by anything, and she's a real. She's a real pick you up, we all have good days and bad days, right? And Miriam probably equally has good days and bad days, but when you're having a bad day, a little bit of Miriam in life helps.
Yeah, I could see that. That's awesome. Hey, Miriam, take care out there. Let's see. Zach, looking forward to a great week. Thanks, Rob, for coming on, checking in from, I believe it's Amelia Island, Florida. Zach, I am also looking for the invitation to come visit. So, that's great. Looks like Josh is out there. Michael Cadden, hi, Rob, Lee, Rob and Ben. Look at this, sunny and beautiful. Fernando in Brazil. Hello, all. Missing you guys. Fernando, you came up today. I'm talking to Patricia. It's good to see you, buddy. Michael Quigley, 70 and sunny here in Silicon Valley. Now this person's infiltrated the broadcast here. There seems to be a similar last name here. What's the story with this character right here, Anna Fletcher, GMS?
That could be the power behind Heart Relocation. You know what they say: behind every great man, there's an even greater woman, and there she is.
There she is. So I got to ask, okay, because I also have a wife, and I worked with her for about 3 or 4 years. What's it like? Owning, running a business, and maybe even more importantly, working in the day-to-day with your better half?
Actually, it's amazing, and we're blessed because we've worked together for a number of years before we kind of started the Heart Endeavor, and we're like we're the perfect yin and yang in this space. She's strong where I'm weak. I'm strong where maybe she doesn't have the same skills, and operationally she takes care of making sure that the stuff happens so that when we get to those review meetings we get those kinds of responses that I've already talked about, and I'm much more in kind of the sales and marketing space of organization, so we work pretty effectively in that space. And I think one of the joys is we do talk about work when we're at home. And right now we talk about work all the time when we're at home because we're all locked down, so we're at home 24/7, right?
Right.
But we know what we're talking about, and so it's not my subject of work doesn't bore my partner because it's the same subject, and I think it works for us. I understand it may not work for every couple. Some couples like further degrees of separation, but we're a team, and we just love it.
So this is really interesting because my wife is her and I complement each other in very similar ways, right? And I've always dreamed of having a business with my wife. So give me some advice here about how can I make myself a suitable business partner for my wife, because I'm trying to pull her in here. She's got so many skills and talents, but I have a feeling there's a problem with the personnel currently in place. That's making her a bit hesitant. So give me some advice here. How do I work with my wife better in the business?
Man, I didn't realize you got me on this show for marriage guidance.
You literally wrote, "I can ask you anything." So here it goes. Okay, we're at minute 14. It gets worse, Rob. Okay, here it goes.
All I can say is be yourself, right? I mean, if your relationship is your relationship.
That's the problem, Rob, is I'm being myself and she doesn't want a partner.
Then probably shouldn't be working together.
There you go. If it's not easy, though, I mean, that does seem to be a lesson, though, in business, right? The great things. On the one hand, you have to work really hard for things that are worthwhile, but there's an ease that goes to good fits. Right? Whether it be hiring someone or coming up with branding, right? Heart Relocation, right? There's an ease that comes with it. I mean, is there an ease that comes with it where you and her kind of understand, like, or do you have like
Yeah,
agreement to agree kind of thing?
yeah. I mean, I think we've been together a long time, and we have our family, we have the kids. There's quite a lot of intuitive stuff that goes on between us. I know we can finish each other's sentences generally pretty well, but I will never step into the space where she's the expert, and she would never do the same to me. So there's that. There's not, I'm going to say they're holy cows because they're not, but there are areas where she understands my strength and I understand her strength, and she has 100% control over those, and I would never presume to step on her toes or anybody else's, frankly. But if somebody's good at what they do, let them do what they do, right? I think that's part of the challenge with a lot of businesses, where you hire great people and then try to turn them into something else which is a reflection of you, rather than just recognizing that you've hired a great person and let them be great.
Yeah, no, that's great. Aaron Gerard's checking in. Good to see you there. Brian says, great question, Ben. Thank you so much. Janet says, Martin and I could never work together. Yeah, I know. I mean, I think it takes a lot of patience on both sides, and a lot of, like, because it's got to be different than the way you interact regarding work versus the way you interact at home. Has got to be different things, I would think. Or maybe, I mean, let's see here. Go ahead. What do you think?
No, but it's just time and separation, right? At the end of the day, when we're in the office environment talking about things for business, then that's a business discussion that happens in a business like way. When we're at home deciding what the kids want to eat for dinner, or where we're going at the weekend, that's a husband and wife conversation. And
I know,
I recognize it may not be easy for some people to kind of find that separation, but we found a real beat to that template.
Well, people are really loving this line here. I know it's uncomfortable for you, and maybe that's why people like it so much, but this is great. Victoria's saying, Ben, you have to let go of some control of your wife to work with you. Well, I don't really control my wife. I think I mean control of my work, maybe, for my wife to work. Yeah, I mean, no, you're right? You have to make space for people. It's just like any partner, any employee that comes into the business. You got to make space for them to be themselves and really make it their own.
Yeah, and I think it's there's that old watchword that you should never employ family, right? Because when you employ family in a business, the expectation levels of what they'll deliver is always significantly higher than you would expect from somebody that you employ that's not a family member. So I think it's also knowing when to let go of stuff and not to kind of carry on is really important as well. And I think that's that degree of separation thing that I talked about, of that's your area of expertise, Anna. It's yours, and I'm not going to get involved unless you ask for my opinion. I'm never.
And how does that happen? Anyway, moving on. Let's see here. We got some other comments here. Let's see. Lindy says, I adore my husband, but we would probably not work well together. That's so funny. Excuse me. Alan says, my wife and I have been running our company, King and Mayor, together for just over 10 years now. I wouldn't have it any other way. Alan, give us some tips. I want to hear some tips there, Alan. 10 years is great. Some people can say married 10 years. You got a business there. I just celebrated my 10-year anniversary with my wife. That's fantastic here. Let's see here. Holly checking in. Always wonderful to hear from Rob and the great things that Heart Relocation are doing. Yeah, we're going to talk more about the branding too, because you've done a tremendous job with that. Jack Jampel. Hey, Jack. Good to see you, buddy. Jack says, hi, Rob and Ben. Rob, what were your careers before Heart Relo? So, yeah, you said you've been in the business for decades. Where were you? What'd you guys do?
So, yeah, I didn't start off thinking about relocation as a career, to be honest with you. I wanted to be an artist and paint pictures. And from that, I kind of fell into a career and was a policeman in London for 4 years, which is a great job, but a horrible job. But that's a whole different story.
I'm so intrigued by that right now. Like, I want to hear about.
Yeah, but
okay, just real quick, just because you brought it up, one great police story. Just one great. Give me one great police story.
No.
No, he said no.
I'm gonna leave you hanging on that one. That's a different story for a different day.
Always planning for the
Because
sequel.
none of them are short. They're all long and and maybe a little contentious. But
Okay.
I mean, you know, being a policeman in London is a great job, but it's also a terrible job, and it just didn't suit me, you know. So it didn't last very long, and then I kind of got into real estate, so into residential estate agency, and I came across a job for a relocation company. Never heard of a relocation company, didn't know what they did, so I joined a company called ARC Relocation, which no longer exists. It's been bought and bought and bought again by other companies. From there, I joined a company called Rowan Simmons, which was one of the companies that Server bought when it was going through its massive global expansion. From Rowan Simmons and therefore ergo Server, spent a lot of time in Chicago, which was amazing. Although all the times I went to Chicago, I actually never went to Chicago. I went somewhere else.
Oh, that Oak Brook Terrace.
Yeah, wherever it was, the huge global headquarters that Server bought, that was the size of 37 football pitches, or it was huge facility. And then I joined Sterling Relocation, which is now part of Lexicon, as you know. And from there went to Interdine, and Interdine then got bought by Santa Fe and became Santa Fe Relocation. And that was the company that I spent best part of 13 years with them before we decided to kind of branch out on our own on this amazing journey that we're on right now.
So this is great, and I got so many questions about this amazing journey, and we're going to do a top 5 of Rob's top 5 favorite travel places. But I want to thank everybody who's leaving comments. Keep those questions coming. I love your questions; they're even better than mine. So keep them coming, and we're going to keep giving shout outs as well. And I'm going to talk a little bit about business strategy, because I think it's so interesting that you decided to open a relocation company in 2020. Or was it 2020 or 2019? When did you really start?
So we made the decision at the end of July, beginning of August 2019. We were actually on vacation when we had this epiphany and the decision to create Heart Relocation. And then we came back and officially opened our doors on the 2nd of January 2020.
Okay. And then we're going to talk about COVID and all that too, because we got to talk, because you can't talk about 2020 if you don't talk about COVID, right? No. So shout out to Simon Johns. Hi, Rob. Good to see you, old friend. That's awesome. Here, Nicola tuning in from Heilbronn, Germany. Hi, everyone. Nicola's been awesome the last couple weeks. Hi, Ben and Rob from Kelly Gurin, touching base from sunny Phoenix. Best wishes. And congrats to you, Kelly. I think you got a new gig. So awesome. Congrats. Kudos. Amanda, happy Monday from sunny Phoenix and Urban Bound. Let's see. Victoria checking in. Johanna from Sweden. What's up, Johanna? I still owe you a phone call, Johanna. Hi, Rob and Ben. Great to hear the story. Greetings from Amsterdam. Awesome. Lena from snowy Sweden. Looking forward to hearing your stories. Pierre, greetings from Geneva. Dan Bagley. Hi, Ben and Rob. Great show as always. Brian Rivers, who's going to be on Friday. We've got a big announcement. Brian's giving away a bunch of stuff on the show, so everybody tune in Friday for that. It's going to be awesome. Let's see. Pierre says, first time we met was in Vevey, Switzerland in 2004. Yeah. Time flies, Rob. Where was that? What was that about, Rob?
We were both working for Server at the time, and that story is actually quite funny. I'm sure, Pierre, I hope you don't mind me sharing it, but he said to me as we were driving in the hire car to visit a client, he said, you create a real problem for me, Rob. I went, what's the problem? He goes, I don't like English people, but I quite like you.
That's great. That's funny. It's good to see Pierre here. Mike Quigley. Look at that. Let's see here. Lynn, glad to connect to great people. Pivot is very lucky to partner with Heart. It's been a natural fit from the start. Look at that, making a rhyme here. Miriam's lying to the people in the comments. That's all right. It's okay. We're all clinically insane here on this show. It says Henri, spot on, Henri, as usual. Sophia, hi, Ben. Hi, Rob, checking in from Mexico. Sophia, it's good to see you. Vinny, hi there. Cheers, everyone. Rob and Ben have a great show here. Michael Cadden. Pat Moose, say hi, Rob, in London this week. Let's see here. All right. This is okay. This is the question I really wanted to ask here. And Jack always comes in with the best questions here. Jack says, with so many RMCs, what would you say is your number one differentiator from all the others out there? And I might even phrase this differently too, right? I mean, you've been in the Relo game for decades. You're sitting there on a holiday, presumably under the influence, and you decide, you know what, let's start a Relo. You know what the world needs right now? You turn over to Anna. You know what the world needs right now? Another relocation company. And she's 5 rum runners deep, and she's like, yeah, spot on, right? No, but seriously, what made you guys decide, there's room out here? Because when I look around, I see consolidation. I see my friends in the relocation business talking about, how hard it is to make a buck, and it's not like the good old days, and the policies are changing, and the volumes are down, and I mean, 8 million different reasons why, they can't be successful. I love when people go out and go run counter. So why did you guys decide to start a business? And then let's talk about your differentiator.
It is the greatest question you can ask, right? I think of all the questions that can get asked of us, it is the greatest question. And COVID aside, what we saw was a gap. Something was beginning to be missing, and I will talk about this in quite generalistic terms. And I'm not casting this brush at every single person in this industry, but I think there is a tendency right now for people to look at that. We've all kind of, there's that famous phrase that you cut your own throat and watch everybody else bleed to death, right? And I think in our business,
it's hardcore.
Yeah, but it is. But I mean, I think that's what's happened. The prices. I've been in this business 30 years. What we charge today is lower than what we were charging for the same service 30 years ago. Nothing is cheaper. I mean, absolutely nothing is cheaper. And we're all chasing the elusive rabbit down the rabbit hole, and that rabbit's got the word technology tattooed on its rear end that we're all following. And ultimately, we move people. We move their stuff, we move their entire life. But at the core of what we do, we move people. And we seem to have lost that customer service edge to what we do because we've tried to do more with less people. We put more pressure on more people. And we just wanted to say, okay, enough's enough. Let's go back to some good old fashioned values. Let's bring the value of what we do back. Let's focus on customer service. Let's limit the number of assignees that any of our consultants look after. Let's not give them caseloads of 120 and 150 and just squeeze the living daylights out of them. Let's give them a manageable caseload that gives them the time to invest in that family that's on the move and make a difference to that journey for them. Let's make sure that that assignee has the information they need to make good decisions, to take care of not just the assignee, but also their partner and their kids, and make sure that they've all got, whatever are their variant needs through this process addressed and taken care of and delivered. And that really for us was the basics of wanting to do stuff different. And it goes back to that, what I said is making promises to a client when you're in the sales environment that you can actually live up to in the service delivery environment. And that hasn't happened in, for many years. For me, it doesn't feel like that's happened as it should. So that was kind of what we wanted to do differently. So, it's hard in this business to think of differentiators because we all do the same thing, right? A wheel is a wheel is a wheel is a wheel. What we try to do is think about how do we make that wheel more efficient. So, I think one of the big things is that we have an absolute limit of 30 cases per consultant. So any consultant will never work on more than 30 files at any time, no matter what stage they're at. So it's not 30 live files and 150 that I got a week ago. It's 30 in total. We changed the relationship with are partners. We don't talk about vendors and suppliers. We talk about partners. We engage with them differently. We share information with them much more openly. And you know, I have a million stories, but just one interesting story. You know, when we started building out our partner network, I started talking to really good destination services companies who said we don't work with RMCs. And when you ask them why they don't work with RMCs, you know, there's a catalogue of reasons why, which I'm sure you can name. But, you know, some of them were to do around money, some were to about respect, some were to be about thrown under a bus. And when they talked to us, they said, you know, actually, we will join you. So, you know, we've got a huge supplier partner network now of people that would normally be in that supplier space, who we have access to, and you know, have talent and can bring different things to an assignee's journey.
I want to unpack each of these, right? Because I think they're each important, and I have questions about each of them, right? And so the first thing you talked about was the caseload. And whenever I talk to my friends in RMC world, right, they talk about caseload, and they're either selling the fact that they have fewer cases, you know, compared to to big relo, right? I always, you know, the big RMC, big relo, right? They have bigger, you know, fewer cases. Or big relo is selling the economies of scale through technology and things like that, and segmentation, having a move team and having a corporate housing team, segmenting the service, you know, whatever, and therefore the consultant can handle 400 files because everybody else is doing the work for them. They're just speaking to the transfer. So it's interesting to see both of them sell both ways. But the thing I always had a question about, because our business is so cyclical, right? And it's so many people move in such a certain time of year, right? When the kids are out of school, that it's got to make it hard. It's made it hard for me in the past when I ran operations for a moving company. It's made it hard to staff to that. So while you might max out at 30 files in the summertime, a lot of the staff becomes underutilized in the winter. And how does one staff to that? Just out of curiosity, what interesting strategies you have?
Yeah, so I think, I mean, you know, it's a great question, and I think there are a lot of moves that happen in the summer. That's the actual physical move. You know, my experience is that in the assignment management space, there's that peak and trough isn't as pronounced. It's a much flatter. I mean, it's still a curve, but it's a much flatter curve, because you've got lots of activity starting at different points that all culminates in that, you know, that kind of crazy weekend in the summer where everybody wants to move before the kids get into school.
So there's a series of curves that are overlapping that kind of almost create kind of a flatness to them.
Yeah, and it seems to work, you know, pretty well for us. And the other thing, you know, let's be absolutely realistic about this. You know, we won't do this for $1.99, right? I mean, you know, there's everybody seems to be chasing down a lower and lower fee, and we've said we want to charge a decent day's pay for a decent day's work. So our fees actually, you know, not going to be cheap compared to some other organizations that would live in the space that we live in, but that hasn't daunted the clients that have joined us, because I think the interesting conversation is the question about value. And the only commodity that we have of any value in what we do is time. If you give people time to develop an argument, to develop a scenario, to work with an assignee, the value that they deliver, and this is where it spills over into the wellness and well-being space, is that somebody lands happy, right? We talk about landing happy. If I, as an assignee in a family, go on an assignment, not having a great experience, I arrive in the host location feeling abused and abandoned, the chances of me picking myself up quickly to bounce into work on day one and go, hi everybody, I'm here, I'm gonna have a great time, I'm gonna be brilliant, is much higher if you've taken care of them and they've landed well. If they've landed badly, they're going to take time licking their wounds, brushing themselves off, getting ready. And that space, that bouncing along on the bottom, is where you don't create value for an organization, and the longer that the assignee, the family spend at the bottom of that curve, the less chance they are ever going to deliver to the desired ROI on that assignment. So, the emotional part of the journey is as important, if not more important, than the physical part of the journey. And we never think about the emotional journey. We only think about the moving of stuff and the finding of schools and houses.
It's so true, because the emotional part is somewhat, it's a bit hard to quantify, although I guess we quantify with satisfaction surveys, but it's also so soft and squishy, and like, do we really care about emotions? I mean, these are the kinds of conversations and value judgments I think that are happening in the, in the C-suite, or within the senior levels, maybe of purchasing and procurement, and it just seems so squishy and hard to quantify, I guess. And then the case for those families being at the bottom of the emotional trough, if you will, and the outcomes for that. I think a lot of the evidence to support them leaving the companies have been somewhat anecdotal heretofore. I mean, those of us who touch it, every day believe it, and we know it to be a truth. But I'm not sure that people that aren't in it know it to be a truth. As you were describing this to me, and kind of like looking at the emotional highs and lows, right? And as I'm going through a relocation myself, right, and see the emotional highs and lows from a day-to-day, week-to-week basis, the longer they stay on the bottom, to your point, it's almost like a ticking time bomb while they're down there, right?
Sure.
Is it the difference of them having a conversation and moving on? Is it the difference of them not showing up to work on the first day super engaged? Or is it a difference of, I'm immediately looking for a new gig to get me back to where I came from, or just somewhere else in general? I think these are big stakes.
Yeah, I mean, it's all of those things. And I think, it's interesting. I don't think there's been a lot of work done. I mean, we did some research into wellness as part of, the early stages of our organization. And we had a wellness counselor, qualified wellness counselor, carry out interviews with a large number of assignees, partners, and some teenagers, just to talk about their emotional journeys. And we weren't interested in what their policy looked like or how their housing allowance worked, or they were talking exclusively about the emotional part of the journey. And what was really interesting is that the vast majority of them said that they recognized that the move affected them negatively, both at home and at work. I mean, almost 100% said that they were impacted negatively by being relocated, and some came out of it, with Teflon, and came out of it pretty fast, but others bumped along at the bottom for quite a long time. And that's the danger zone. That's where people are taking extra days off work, or taking sick days. And I saw you had Holly on the show, and her Next Gen GM group doing a lot of work around wellness, which we're working with her on. But, she'll talk about the fact that, when she's done research within her own organizations, that expats who had a exemplary sickness record go on assignment and suddenly don't have an exemplary sickness record. There's something in that.
That's so interesting.
And there was a telecoms company a number of years ago that we were speaking to, that had done quite a lot of research and created all kinds of algorithms, and they worked out that a non-engaged assignee was costing their organization $2,500 a day. You add 10 days up across 100 assignees, and suddenly it's a big number.
Sure.
And there's evidence, just evidence in the real world. If you look at the EU produced some figures, and the amount of work days lost to stress-related illness accounts for about 4.7 of the gross domestic product of the entire EU. Now, I'm not suggesting that all assignees go sick, but and that they're not the entire working population of the EU, but you just extrapolate those numbers down, and it's a significant amount of time potentially that is lost to non-productivity.
Yeah. This is so interesting. We're getting a ton of comments about this. Keep checking in. Hit that like button if you haven't done so already. Throw a question and comment in. We've got a ton of good stuff here. Pierre's clearing the air, just for the record. He loves English people. He says, I've changed my mind since we met. So, yeah, that's funny. So that's great. Chris, what's up, Chris? My good buddy, Chris.
Hey, Chris.
Bud. Let's see here. Oh goodness, Gerard's got a great question. I want to come back to that one, George. Let's see here. Hi from New Zealand. We love your work. Bridget says, totally agree, Robin. For our corporate clients, the value of talent is higher than it was 30 years ago. And she's talking about, and yet our service prices have gone down. Elizabeth, let's see it here. Elizabeth Sully, hi, Ben and Rob. Good seeing you both. Annette Walters checking in. Nicola loved the metaphor of slit your own throat and watch other people bleed out. Is that how? I got to bleed to death. Oh, my gosh. I got to get that one down because I really do like that one. It's spot on, as they say. Annette says, and Annette does work with families and spouses and coaches them on how to be successful at destination. She says, help assignees make decisions is so important. What process do you use to help them make efficient and family-serving decisions, especially when they are not experts in any of these partners' industries?
So it's a great question, and there's there's lots of levels on which that can work. The first one is just taking time. You know, when we go back to that, you know, the important commodity that we have is letting people talk stuff out. You know, when you're a consultant and you've got a caseload of 150 and 25 calls to make today and 75 emails to respond to, I'm going to get on a call, but I'm already thinking about the next call as I join the call that I'm on with you. I'm not giving you that space. Taking the pressure off to say, okay, just take the 20 minutes, the half an hour, the 45 minutes. If somebody just wants to vent at you and talk about the challenges, part of the cathartic nature of that is just to vent it and let it go, right? Having the time once you finish the call to what we lovingly call it window time at Heart Relocation, but the time just to get off the call and look out the window and think about the conversation you've just had and go, how am I going to help this family? What am I going to do? What difference can I make that's going to resolve some of those problems? You know, and you know, I've listened to a lot of the expats that Lindy has had on her show. Right, and they all talk very similarly about, if only the company had listened to me, I didn't need this help, I needed something else, but they didn't want to give me that because the policy said no, right? It's about being more flexible. It's about creating a unique package for a unique set of individuals, which is a family. And we're all unique, you know, we all have our little nuances. So having us all kind of regimentedly fitting into a policy and one size fits all, sometimes we have to have a bit more flexibility around that. And it's part of our job to build that flexibility and have those conversations with the client to say, I know your policy says do X, Y, Z, but X, Y, Z ain't going to work here. You want to do X, Y, A, and that will get you a result. And that seems to be a great conversation. On top of that, we blend in working with wellness consultants. So we have a number of wellness consultants that help us understand the journey that people are on. And I've talked to you about the Kubler-Ross curve, that, you know, that change curve that people go through, and recognizing that as you go through an assignment, you're going to experience lots of different emotions, and you're going to experience them on a scale. You know, the anger and pain, you may feel it as a 1 or you may feel it as a 10. If it's a 1, you'll brush it off and you'll walk straight past it. If you're feeling it as a 10, that can be kind of assignment threatening, can almost be life threatening. And if we're going to talk about wellness, we should talk about mental health, because that's a word, those two words people don't want to bring into any conversation, but we don't want to affect people's mental health. So having the access to wellness consultants, working with wellness consultants, making sure that assignees have access in a separate silo, so it's not connected to the consultant that's looking after them on their journey, but having access to consultants that can take care of somebody who's having an emotionally tough time is really important. And we want clients that understand that and will work with us in that space. And you know, thankfully, we're finding clients that actually want to live in that space. And you know, bringing in the dreaded COVID word, although we dreamed this up before anybody had even imagined anything beyond Corona living in a bottle in an ice bucket. It's actually kind of, it's almost brought into sharp focus the need to be more conscious of the well-being of people. So
yeah, it does. It does. You're right. You know, you're bringing up a ton of great points here about wellness, and we'll see if we got time to do a deep dive on that, because I am fascinated how you put that, center focus on that. Victoria brings up a couple of great comments here, and shout out to Victoria down there in Dallas. Love hearing her comments. She says, lots of RMC self-service. I was consistently at 97% plus, and the company overall around 75%, and they called that great. She goes on to say, caseloads are her hot subject. I think anyone who's sat in the consultant seat knows caseloads are the hot subject. We consistently operated at over 100% caseload. Victoria, I'd love to know what your 100% threshold was when you were a consultant. Sometimes way over 200% if the client was doing a big reorg. And that's interesting. 200% seems like you could justify another FTE or another at least assistant or something. Victoria, I'd love more information about that. Interesting. Johanna, love it, Robert Fletcher and Anna Fletcher. By limiting the cases to 30 per consultant, you are also giving the consultant a chance to work a chance at work-life balance.
And that's another great point. And we didn't talk about it. It's not just talking about the wellness of assignees. It's also talking about the wellness of our employees, and understanding that we want to create an environment that's positive for people to work in, and not putting them under blinding pressure and draining every last ounce of anything out of them is part of our mission too.
This is great. Speaking of wellness, Sandra Clary, is the wellness intel available outside of heart? Great study.
Yeah, Sandra, you go to our website or send me an email. I'll happily send you a copy of our research paper.
Also, Miriam, if you're watching still, or Anna, throw a link in the comments too. Feel free to tag it in there. Man, I want to get to our top 5 here, but we got some good comments coming in here. Bridget Romains, well-being support is now an integral part of all our programs. Our corporate partners are so supportive. Change is coming. Throw up the heart there. Hit that heart sign, by the way, if you believe in wellness out there. Okay, show a little heart. We'll take a little poll here. Throw that heart sign up in the comments there, or just put a little heart emoji down there. Jack says, thank you, Jack. I love your questions, Jack. Here is a question I asked in prior shows. We are working with budgets, and you mentioned assignees said they don't need certain benefits. What benefit would you suggest removing in order to provide more cultural support?
That is a great question, and I don't think there's a straight answer to that, because I think that the reality is you have to look at each individual circumstances of each person that's relocating. And I think if we talk about the value of us and as an RMC, and I'm sometimes humbled to call ourselves an RMC, because I feel like we're like a flea compared to elephants that are wandering around us in this space. But the reality is, where do I add value? It's by thinking about your money as my client's money as my own, and saying, how do I spend your money better to get the best result? And sometimes it isn't about just doing things cheaper. It's changing and doing something different, and using the bit of money you have over here and putting it somewhere else for a better result.
Yeah, and so I guess the question goes back to Jack, right? So it's first, when you said thinking about the client's money as your own, I thought, okay, he's trying to get as much of it in his pocket as possible. But that's not what you meant. What you were saying instead, I'm just kidding. That's a joke. Sorry. No, but the question then goes back to Jack and says, I think would be to say, would you allow your supplier to have that approach to say, hey, I know the policy is XYZ, but I think it should be XYA in this circumstance because I think that's what it takes, right? Is to say you're spending too much money over here. If we allocated some of those resources here, I think we could have a better outcome. Is that correct, or am I missing the point?
No, absolutely. And it's don't spend all the money on this, because the family doesn't need it, because the policy says they're entitled to it. You know, I know, and I'm not going to mention any names, but I know that there are companies that will invoice for a service that is never used by the assignee, but it's on the policy, it's part of the initiation, so I'm going to invoice you for it, even though it's never used by the employee. That's, for me, that feels wholly wrong, right? At the end of the day, the employee's not getting any benefit out of it. The company is paying for something that the employee's not getting any benefit. And actually, you could probably spend some of that money doing something that's going to benefit the employee. The end game for that being that you have an employee that lands happier, that is more engaged at work, and more likely to not just meet but exceed any ROI that you have in place for that assignment.
Jack, what do you think about that? Let us know in the comments there. Lenny says more money doesn't need to be spent. It needs to be spent smarter. Good. Yeah. Good. Miriam was asking, wait, what happened? Wait, I heard my name. Wait, do I do something here? Don't worry. Anna was paying attention. Anna got it. She tagged it in there. Awesome. People are supporting the mission there. They're sending the hearts. They're dropping them in the comments. So that's fantastic. And Bridget's saying she agrees with Lindy. And Jack agrees that that's a good point that Lindy makes about spending the money smarter. Okay. This leaves us just a little bit of time for a segment we're doing called Top 5. Okay. So Rob, I'm going to ask you to bear with me. We're trying something new here. So let's see here. Let's see if we got time for our top 5 here. Top 5 places I have fallen in love with. Now, Rob, when I asked you to do a top 5, what made you think of this topic to start?
Because I don't know. It's a tough question to ask anybody. You know, you kind of went through the top 5 books, top 5 movies, top 5 superheroes, and I thought, actually, what do I love more than anything else is travel. It's the world. It's moving. It's kind of synonymous with what we do. So, you know, I've been fortunate in my job. I've traveled extensively around the world. I've been to some amazing places. So actually, you know, why not talk about my top 5 places in the world?
Okay. All right. Well, let's do it. Number 5.
I've fallen in love with, not fallen in love in. Just
we got a real breaking news here. No, number 5. Go ahead, say it and tell me all about it.
Key West. Well, you know what? I love Key West for the fact that it is so bohemian. It's like it has everything that America has to offer without being America. And the rum runners and the rum runners are amazing. And I had an amazing afternoon in the Hog's Breath Saloon. And drank way too many rum runners and talked to some really interesting people. And then when I decided it was time to go back to my hotel, got off the bar stool and realized that somebody had taken my legs.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you my Key West story. So I honeymooned in Key West.
Okay.
With my wife. We just drove down. We were in St. Pete in Clearwater at the time. We drove down. And we also loved Key West so much and probably had so many rum runners for so many days in a row that we decided we were going to move to Key West. I interviewed for a job. I got a job. I got a realtor. We got an apartment. And then we sobered up on day 4. We had already called our parents. We sobered up on day 4. And I was like, I can't work 2 jobs to support, basically being a lush on the beach. I got to go back to work. I can't do this anymore. And that was my Key West experience. But yeah, it's a great place. Great choice. How about number 4?
Cairns in Australia. And that's of all the places you can go in Australia, it's quintessentially Australian. It's close to the Great Barrier Reef. I'm a keen scuba diver, so that's a pretty cool place to be anyway. But what I love about Cairns is it feels kind of like you go back in time a little bit, not to the 18th century, but just enough years where things feel different. And the most amazing beaches that nobody goes on. Nobody even goes near the water because the waters are full of saltwater crocodiles that will launch themselves out of 6 inches of water and eat you if you give them the chance. So nobody goes near the water. So you've got these amazing beaches.
Do they come onto the beach?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So
That
they
is
just hang
scary and
around with their
terrifying.
little.
I would be the guy that shows up, says, "Honey, let's walk along the beach and take a selfie and whatever," and then have my leg in a crocodile's mouth. Oh my gosh, that's awful. That's absolutely awful. Anna is saying she's just warning you right now. So you have some time. And, if you need to reorganize this, you got some time. But basically, Poland better be on the list. Otherwise, Rob's going to be sleeping in Key West if he doesn't watch out. This is great. I love threats. I love when we put threats on the show. This is truly, truly amazing. This is wonderful. And Gerard is saying his battery is burning. Can you throw this out? I don't know what that means. I don't know if it's about his question earlier. Sorry about your battery, Gerard. Let's see here. All right, number 3.
Luxor in Egypt is the most mystical place on earth. It's amazing and if you've ever been there, to go to the Valley of Kings, to the Temple of Karnak, and just drink in, a culture that was alive 5,000-7,000 years before the birth of Christ, and what they achieved. It's mind bending.
Wow. Does it feel like you're in a different time?
You can get lost in there. I mean, it's a pretty heady place to be, and not without challenges as a tourist. But I've had some amazing experiences in Luxor. And yeah, it's just one of those places. It's vised to be top of the list, but it's number 3 is pretty high up.
Nice. Number 2.
What's not to love about the Maldives? I mean, hopefully with global warming, it will last a few more years, although there's some talk that it will disappear if sea levels rise too much, because it's not much over 2 feet above sea level anywhere at all. But the first time I went to the Maldives, it was a proper desert island experience. There was no cell phone signal. There was no TV in the bedroom. There was no telephone. There was one telephone at reception that cost you $25 a minute to use. Guess what? Nobody used the telephone, right? I took 7 pairs of shoes with me on vacation, and I never wore one of them once. It's an idyllic place to be.
And that's the one where like they had the hotels on like stilts in the water, kind of, and it's like
Yeah, I mean, we went to a pretty basic island, and I think there are some of the mega resorts in the Maldives right now where you can actually go to a desert island, and if you choose never to step on sand, you can achieve that, which kind of feels like it loses some of the mystique, really. But this was amazing, and you make friends. You're on a 200 foot by 700 foot island, and you kind of make friends with people. In fact, when I went, I made friends with a Canadian couple who was a lawyer. And, you have this kind of holiday bromance thing that you sometimes have, and you swap telephone numbers and you never use them. And 2.5 years later, I was in a backstreet pub in Leeds watching a rugby match, and I heard a voice that I knew from somewhere, but I couldn't place it. And I turned around, and it was the Canadian lawyer who'd just taken a job in Leeds as a lawyer.
He tracked you down. Awesome. And Gerard, we will get to your question, I promise. All right, number 1.
Home.
We're gonna call this Poland.
Home is where my heart is, right? And it's where my family is, and it's where the love of my life is. And there is no place in the world I would rather be. And I will follow them. And home could be Poland. Thanks for getting me out of that one, Ben.
No problem. I got you, buddy. I got you. And our last question for the day, because I gotta make everybody happy here. So Gerard says, Rob, we share similar backgrounds, long timers at big companies. It's a big decision to do what we did and launch solo. What's your biggest challenge that you face outside of this comfort zone?
Control, lack of, and not knowing what you don't know until somebody says, have you thought of that? And you go, No. Did I need to? And they go, oh yeah, you need one of those. And you busily search on, you know, my best friend Google, that then tells me I've got to spend another $2,000 on something that I didn't know that I had to spend it on 5 minutes ago. So yeah, just not knowing what you don't know, and it's hard. I think, you know, there's a lot of, I have to say, I'm humbled by the number of people that have helped us, supported us. Offers of, you know, support and help have been amazing from people. It's really refreshed my belief in human beings overall. But nobody has the kind of the manual that says start here, follow these 17 steps, and you'll have what you want. You learn a lot on the go. And that, you know, it's a joyous thing, but it's also, like I said, you know, it's I love roller coasters. What I love about roller coasters is you get extremely excited, and then extremely scared, and then 75 seconds it's done, right? This was getting on a roller coaster, but nobody told you can never get off. It's just
I was
going
going to
on.
say, are you saying heart relocation could be over in 75 seconds? I don't
No,
understand. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. No,
it's a mega coaster.
Yeah, what you've done is an inspiration for a lot of people. As a new entrepreneur myself, I'm looking around always, looking at entrepreneurs in the space who are having some success and who are, you know, what they're doing with branding. And I think what you guys are doing with branding is exceptional. And I love the way you're leading with your heart and leading with service as well. And it's just really nice. You know, we're running out of time here, Rob, but I wanted to kind of give you the floor for a final thought.
You know, I think it's the world is, whichever way, wherever you look right now, the world is full of challenges, whether it's pandemic, whether it's political, whether it's economic, whether it, you know, whatever it is, we're all filled with challenges. And I think I was sharing just before we came on, you know, it's even got to the stage where truck drivers' sandwiches are being confiscated at the border because we're not allowed to transport ham between the EU and the UK anymore. You know, we've got more important things to worry about, I guess. But ultimately, we all have to be here for each other. And, you know, we didn't talk about finders keepers, and I would have loved to have spent a little time talking about that.
Shout it out real quick. Take a moment if you need to, right? Let's talk about finders keepers. It's a nice, noble mission.
Yeah, and it's all about, you know, I'm blessed to have been in this industry for as long as I have, and it's given me some amazing moments and some amazing stories and some amazing experiences. And we can just sit here in take mode forever, right? But at some point you have to go, you know what, I need to give something back. I need to help. I need, particularly in times of trouble, which we're in right now, we need to give something back. And that was kind of the, you know, driven by, as you described her, my dynamo Miriam, creating an environment where we could actually, you know, just by giving our time, which is what it is, create a forum where people who were out of work as a result of the pandemic could be connected with people who had jobs available, and just give them an environment where they could interact with each other and help each other out. And I think, you know, we all need to do a bit more of that. You know, we all, this industry is quite competitive, right? You know that we're everybody's out to do everybody else in, and actually sometimes we should just take a step back and be human beings first.
Agreed. Well, I think that's a wonderful final thought. Myself here. I just want to thank everybody who tuned in today. Thank you for giving us your time. A ton of people tuned in today, Rob, which I think is a testament to you, what Heart is doing, to your community, to your network. Thank you, everybody that took an hour out of the day. Thank you to all the people that left a comment. I'm extremely grateful. I couldn't do the show if you guys didn't watch, if you didn't participate, if you didn't hit that like button. So thank you to everyone in the community. Thank you to Rob. Appreciate you being here and being very open and candid about your journey, your company, even your relationships. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I also want to say, hey, everybody, tomorrow is a big day. Actually, Peggy Smith, Chief Strategy Officer at LOVE+RELO and former CEO of Worldwide ERC, is going to be on the show, and she is flipping the mic. She wants to interview me. So, hey, when Peggy wants to do something, you don't tell Peggy no, right? Peggy wants to come on the show. She wants to interview me. I'm down. Let's do it. You know, it's always going to be candid and real. And we're going to talk about what I'm going to do in the future. So I'm going to be announcing that formally. I teased it, but I'm actually going to announce it formally tomorrow. So I'm kind of excited. I'm kind of nervous about that. So your support means the world. So I hope everybody can tune in, drop your questions and your comments. Thank you again so much. And Rob, thanks for being here, buddy. Appreciate it.
It's well, thanks for having me on. Feel like we only scratched the surface. So look forward to continuing discussions.
Can't wait. Sounds good. Thanks, everybody. Take care.